Secretary Shabana Mahmood is here with me. Very good morning to you, Minister.
Morning.
We were just reviewing all of the headlines out of Donald Trump's speech overnight. Of course, one area of focus is tariffs, clearly been imposed in the last couple of days with rhetoric to support it last night on Mexico, Canada and China. You must be counting your lucky stars that we're not on that list.
Obviously American economic policy is a matter for the American president and for the American people. I'm not going to give a running commentary on what those decisions are. We're obviously very alive to what's happening in terms of those tariffs and the impact that has on the global economy, because it is, of course, an integrated economy, and what happens in one place has an impact elsewhere. But of course, we have our own position in relation to trade with our American counterparts. I think what was very positive about the Prime Minister's meeting in the Oval Office was the discussions around a potential trade deal between us and the United States, and we'll continue working closely with our American partners.
I think the other big headline coming out of the speech last night, certainly as it relates to this continent, is a much more positive tone, all of a sudden, from President Trump towards President Zelensky in Ukraine. Clearly that came from President Zelensky giving President Trump a letter and saying he's ready for peace talks. Was the Prime Minister playing a role in that and getting President Zelensky to send that letter to change his tone towards President Trump?
I think the role that the Prime Minister has carved out and the role he's stepped into very well, I think, has been to be an honest broker between our partners in the United States, President Zelensky, the Ukrainians, and also our wider partners in Europe. I think it's right that in playing that role of an honest broker, we are not providing a running commentary on everything that is said or tweeted or discussed or speeches that are made, whether positive or not. And I think it's appropriate that, we don't provide that running commentary. You can't do diplomacy on the airwaves and in TV studios, but the Prime Minister has been playing his full part. I think we've seen that with the positive meeting that he had in the Oval Office, all of the discussions that have been taking place behind the scenes, and of course the meetings that have taken place here in London. The Prime Minister is going to carry on playing that role of an honest broker, and we will engage in that act of delicate diplomacy because all of us want to see ultimately an end to the fighting in Ukraine.
Let's talk about the justice system and exactly what you're announcing today. I was a bit confused by the press release. Obviously, we know there's a big backlog. What exactly are you announcing today? It's 4,000 more days of judges sitting in the year ahead. Is that the headline of this announcement?
Yes, the government inherited a situation of a record and a rising Crown Court backlog. It currently sits at 73,000 cases that are stuck in that backlog. And what we're announcing today is an unprecedented level of Crown Court sitting days. We're funding 110,000 Crown Court sitting days. That's 4,000 more sitting days than the previous government had made available. That is a very substantial uplift in funding for cases in the Crown Court to try and bear down on that backlog and to get swifter justice for victims as well. 4,000
more days to 110,000. So it's less than a 4% increase. Is that's I've got that correct?
Yeah, it's a very, very substantial increase in the context of Crown Court sitting days and what is capable of being delivered through the Crown Court, not just with the number of judges we have, but with the number of lawyers. It's a very, very significant uplift on what we inherited. I've already been making changes to increase as much as possible in year the number of Crown Court sitting days available, because we do want to crack down on the size of that Crown Court backlog and keep making progress.
And the backlog, you said, was 73,000 cases?
The backlog is currently 73,000 cases.
So 4,000 days is not going to solve many of them?
I think it is going to make a difference.
How many will be solved?
Well, look, it's an unprecedented level of sitting in the Crown Court. What we cannot, predict is the sheer number of cases that are coming into the system. We do know that demand, that is to say the number of cases that are coming in, is rising and has been rising very, very quickly. That's a positive move because it means that the police are out there carrying out investigations, charges are being brought, prosecutions are being brought. So it's positive, but it has increased demand coming into the Crown Court. And I know that the backlog is actually, even if we're making unprecedented funding available, sitting at maximum capacity capacity or close to maximum capacity, that backlog is still going to go up. And that's why I've asked Brian Leveson to do a review for us looking at once-in-a-generation reform.
When will he be delivering his review?
So his review on policy proposals to deliver that reform is due in spring. As soon as we receive those recommendations, the government will take a view and bring forward legislation.
Just finally, I mean, how are you achieving this? Because I know in the NHS we talk about, we need more nurses or doctors. Can you get more judges at short notice? It's not like there's a big pool of people out there, is it, to make judges?
Well, we've been making progress on judicial recruitment. It's not just in the Crown Court, of course, but across all of the jurisdictions, in the family courts, in the civil courts, in the tribunals as well. So we keep making progress on judicial recruitment. That's necessary and important. In looking at the whole system, you also have to consider the availability of lawyers, of prosecutors, of defence barristers, of lawyers of other kinds in the other jurisdictions as well. So I do have to, as the Justice Secretary, take a wider system view, but at 110,000 in the Crown, at near maximum capacity in all of the other jurisdictions, this government is showing that it wants to make progress on backlogs across the justice system and to get run through cases as quickly as we can so that victims can have swift justice.
73,000 cases backlog. Will it be zero by the end of the Parliament?
Well, look, one of the reasons why I've asked Brian Leveson to do his review is even with all of this funding, even if we were sitting to the full maximum capacity of the entire system, that backlog is still going to go up because what we need to deal with is the sheer demand coming into the Crown Courts, and we have to ask a bigger question of the sorts of cases that are coming into the Crown Courts and whether they can be disposed of elsewhere. That's the once-in-a-generation reform that I've asked Brian Leveson to consider. As soon as he's done his review, we will come forward with further proposals. But I think taken together, the funding, the allocation, and also the review and policy changes, that shows that we are determined to deal with that backlog once and for all.
Justice Secretary, thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you.